In today's show, the Blazers make a move, signing veteran point guard Devonte Graham. Who is Devonte Graham, and what does it mean for the rest of the roster? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? Your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. A break in the regularly scheduled recording this week. It's the end of July, but we've switched to 3 days a week, and it's Sprague week here at the show. Brendan Sprague was on the program on Monday. He'll be back on Wednesday. He'll be back again on Friday. But I'm breaking in here because the Blazers made a move. You're listening to a Tuesday evening program, July 30th afternoon record, because the Blazers made a move. They signed veteran point guard Devonte Graham, and I want to talk about who Devonte Graham is real quick and what it means for the rest of the roster. This is going to be a shorter show than normal, but a little bit of breaking news at the end of July. We'll give you what amounts to emergency podcast. I'm not even calling this an emergency podcast. This is just a podcast I'm recording because I love y'all. Okay, so it was announced today, reported by Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, that the Blazers have agreed to a 1-year contract with NBA veteran point guard Devonte Graham, most recently of technically the Charlotte Hornets, but the San Antonio Spurs functionally. What I want to get into is first of all, who Devonte Graham is, but also the impact on the roster. The Blazers have a full boat, and Devonte Graham is either out of the boat and just coming into training camp or kicking someone else out of the boat. We'll get into the full roster and the implications of it first, but let's get to know Devonte Graham quickly. Graham was a second-round pick in 2018, acquired on a draft night trade by the Charlotte Hornets, and in his second season, and so he's the 34th pick in 2018 out of Kansas. He actually grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, went to Broughton, which is the high school made famous by Pistol Pete Maravich and Shavlik Randolph. Shout out to two absolute legends in the game of equal legendary status. But he ended up transferring to a prep school and then went to Kansas. But he was a second-round pick in 2018. First year with the Hornets, it's fine. Second year, he has a breakout season, though, in his second campaign. That's the 2019-2020 season that was cut short by COVID. But that year, 18 points, 18.2 points, 3.4 boards, 7.5 assists. He gets MIP votes. He finishes, in the MIP voting. He had a really, really, really nice second year. Comes back, has a solid but not as good third year, and then his contract is up, and he's signed and traded to the Pelicans, from the Hornets to the Pelicans. So he moves to New Orleans and plays in with the Pelicans for a year and a half. It just never got back to that year two production. Never kind of found the right role. Ends up getting traded from the Spurs. Spends a season and a half with the San Antonio Spurs, and then then this summer, when the Spurs needed to create some cap space to acquire Harrison Barnes, the Spurs traded him back to the Hornets, where he was then waived. They traded him with the remainder of his lightly guaranteed contract and a second-round pick back to the Charlotte Hornets, and he was then waived and became a free agent. He's played 6 years in the league. He'll be entering year 7 as he joins the Blazers, a 28-year-old who won't turn 29 until the calendar flips to 2025. He didn't really play as a Spur last year. He just didn't. He didn't have a lot of opportunity, and that was by design. From what I read in doing quick research, Devonte Graham was not injured last year. He just dealt with a lot of DNP CDs, which did not play coach's decision. In fact, he played just 23 games in San Antonio last season, including only 12 before the All-Star break. So really, in the sort of more serious portion of the season for bad teams, he only had 12 appearances prior to the All-Star break. All told, in 23 games, 5 points, 1.6 boards, 2.1 assists, shot 35% from the floor, including 30% from three. Yeah, the year before that, he was like a bench player for the Spurs, and he was kind of fine. But in his second season, with his half season with the Spurs, but in his full season in San Antonio, it's like they're going to play Tyus Jones at point guard. They tried a long run of Jeremy Sohan at point guard. They were doing some more experimental stuff with the point guard position. And even though Graham was one of their oldest players on the roster, he just wasn't part of the plan. I read a quote from Greg Popovich. It was basically like, we kind of had to, give Devonte some compliments because he was not particularly happy watching so much, but that's just kind of how our particular roster held out. So that's Graham. A second-round pick, a 6'1" point guard who had one really spectacular season and then signed a big old contract that it didn't exactly work out in New Orleans. 4 for 46, I believe, 4 for 46 and some change. You don't have to give the money back. Congrats to Devonte Graham for getting the payday, but he has not been back to his level of production that he had in his second NBA season. And he's a 6'1", 28-year-old point guard whose main value at any point in his career was scoring. He's not like a high level playmaker. He's never been a positive defender, and his efficiency has dropped steadily over the last few seasons. And yet, the Blazers sign him to a contract, a 1 year. I don't think the specifics of the deal have come out, but without a doubt, it is a 1 year veteran minimum contract. I think the question for Devonte Graham is it fully non-guaranteed? I would bet that it is fully or even just lightly guaranteed. So why did the Blazers do this? And what does it mean for everyone else? Is this time to put on a tinfoil hat, or is this just a training camp invite for a veteran? Let's talk about that in the second segment. But first, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime, the place for last-minute tickets. I like Gametime because they got what you're looking for. Up to 60% off deals on last-minute tickets above that list or under that list price. Plus, they reward you for procrastinating. So if you don't decide to go to a game until the very last minute, guess what? Gametime's going to hook you up because they got deals within an hour of tip-off for sporting events. They even got deals tickets that drop after the game starts. So if you are a true procrastinator, there's no better place than Gametime. Plus, I like it because the app is super clean and easy to use. You make a couple clicks, look at the event that you want to go to. The venue comes up right there on your phone. You can see exactly where your seats are, and then what you see is what you get pricing. What you see on the screen is exactly what you're going to pay at checkout. There's no convenience fees, no surprises, no nothing. So take the guesswork out of buying last-minute tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and then use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off your first purchase. That is, once again, super simple. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use that redemption code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. It's Gametime. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. We're still talking to Devonte Graham. So we kind of know who he is, a 6'1" veteran point guard who has, he's kind of been on the outside of a rotation of a developing team. But why would the Blazers do this, and what does it mean? I think the very simple answer is that the Blazers are not, last July, let's talk about this. Last July, the Blazers probably did have too many guards. It was the meme shared here, made famous here by me and a friend of the program, listener Julio, oops, all guards. That's not what the case is. I think the Blazers are actually a little light on guards, but Devonte Graham's not eligible for a two-way deal. So you have to have less than 4 years of service in the NBA to sign a two-way deal. He's like a true veteran. He's not eligible for that. Two-way deals are for young players, not vets. Vets sign veteran minimum contracts, which is what Devonte Graham signed. A 1 year, likely fully non-guaranteed veteran minimum. That's my guess. I'm not reporting that, but that's my guess. So they're going to bring him in training camp. He's going to compete for a spot. But who is he competing for a spot with? Let's get the tinfoil hat stuff out of the way first. Is this the type of deal you would make if you were definitely trading Anthony Simons? No, because you don't. If you're trading Anthony Simons, you're going to have to bring players back. So adding guys to the roster that are going to come into training camp and compete, you wouldn't necessarily need to do that. Even if you're just going to make a 1-for-1 trade for Anthony Simons, one player in, one player out, you would still have a full roster at 15 players, and the Blazers do have a full roster at 15 players. So I don't think this has any really impact on a potential Anthony Simons deal. And if you're saying they're going to trade a veteran guard, could they trade Anthony Simons? Absolutely, but it would be independent and of this Devonte Graham thing, right? The obvious signing is Graham wants a chance to make an NBA roster, and the Blazers are giving him a chance to make an NBA roster because they are indeed a little bit light at guard. but they're full, which means someone would, like, the roster is full with 15 players. They would have, and 14 of those contracts are fully guaranteed now as of this recording. The one contract that is partially guaranteed is Delano Banton. He's your fourth guard right now. Like, he's your fourth guard. He's probably not going to play. Like, if the games were to start today, he's on the outside of the rotation looking in. But that's like what veteran guards are, right? But Delano Banton's contract is only guaranteed right now for $200,000, and it becomes 50% guaranteed. He gets half of his money if he makes the opening day roster, which means that the Blazers can cut him and sign Devonte Graham and remain below the tax line as they need to be, and no harm, no foul. I think some of you probably enjoy the Delano Banton experience more than I did. I just think he kind of showed what he is by the end of the season. He's an inefficient, interesting player, but he's not like, the shooting didn't last. He ended up, shooting 31% from three for the year, which is like, he's been a bad 3-point shooter his whole career. It's kind of the skill that would change things for him. He's big, and he allows for some lineup versatility, and he provides a skill set that they don't have. And the lineup versatility is not something that Devonte Graham does at 6'1". So if you prefer Delano Banton to Graham, cool. I think I probably do as well. But the idea that he is like, Banton is like so far ahead of Graham that they could not possibly waive him and sign Graham that's silly. They're relatively similar in skill set. And Graham, certainly, if nothing else, has, while it was a while ago, has certainly a longer track record of like production in the NBA as a productive point guard in the league. So conceivably, if they were to make a move, the obvious person you cut is Banton, because that's the money that allows you to do the things you need to do. I think the likely scenario is that Graham has a fully non-guaranteed contract, and the Blazers, or maybe has like a small partial guarantee on the deal, and we'll see if the details come out, but he has a small partial guarantee on his deal, and they bring him in and he gets to compete. And if he makes the roster, it's cool. And if he doesn't make the roster, it's also cool, but he's competing with Delano Banton and not anyone else. I think what the most reasonable move to do, because again, the Blazers are full up. Like, they have 15 NBA contracts, the roster is full, the boat is full. You're allowed to sign up to 20 players heading into training camp, and like, probably the most responsible thing to do is to sign a bunch of players and let them compete, because if you don't think that final roster spot is truly spoken for and you can still like reach your financial goals, it makes sense for the Blazers to not be a tax team this year. That is actually the competitive, responsible thing to do. But like, they can still do it. They can still do all of those things. So the Graham signing is probably something that, I think he's either competing for the 15th roster spot or he's just getting a camp invite. I do not read it as a precursor to anything big. If there is something that comes about, my read would still be the same thing, that they could cut Devonte Graham or Delano Banton, and it would be fine depending on who else is in the trade. If other deals come up and it's a multiplayer deal and all of these things, then you can maybe start to see the pieces. But I don't think you could see the puzzle would maybe come a little more clear. But I don't think Devonte Graham, the signing in and of itself, is a precursor to anything or an indicator of anything to come. What it is a move to sign a veteran point guard that has very little risk, and the only thing that you would have to make a decision on is whether to keep another veteran point guard of, different skill set, different size on the roster. For me, I don't think adding to the end of the bench a single position player like a 6'1" point guard makes any more sense than a multi-position player like Delano Banton. But maybe the Blazers value what Graham does in the end, and maybe he wins that spot. Maybe he wins that spot outright in training camp, and they just give it to him. For now, we'll see Devonte Graham when training camp starts in September, and we will figure out what the roster looks like, and the final decision to be made. But that's your show, a quick one for you on a Tuesday evening. Tomorrow's program will be with Brandon Sprague. He's back Wednesday and Friday. I'm going out of town at the end of this week for a little while, so if there is more breaking news, you probably won't hear from me. But check back for Brandon's show on Wednesday and as well as Friday. And then next week is Hiking Week. He'll be on the program Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The typical recording schedule for the rest of August and into the first couple weeks of September is 3 days a week, and the shows will be coming out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then we'll be back to 5 days a week, chugging along all season long. That's how it works. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.